On this episode, we learn about a river restoration project in Seoul, South Korea. Stay tuned.
We're in Seoul, Korea, talking with Professor Soo Hong Noh. What was here at this spot 50 years ago?
Well, 50 years ago, there's passing cars over here. It's completely covered. We probably below it and dark, and then sewer is flowing both sides. That is the 50 years ago. 15 years ago.
What became of all that?
Well, when the Seoul city expands after Korean War, that the population growth was very fast. So and also there's fast industrializations during last 40 years in Korea, especially Seoul. So a lot of cars coming, and they have to build a new road to accommodate those increasing cars. So they covered the whole thing from here all the way to the downstream, which is about 5.8 kilometers. And in addition, they have built the overpass highway. So this became completely covered, and it became officially road instead of stream.
Did people even remember that there used to be a stream underneath the road?
I don't think so, because even me, I'm 63 years old. I vaguely remember that there is a stream in this part, but I can remember there was streams which was not covered. See, this stream is we are now in the upstream part of it, but in the middle stream and then downstream was not covered when I was young, I remember now. But the younger generations, they don't know there is a stream. Even Cheonggyecheon is a stream. They just remember that this is a road.
So what happened to change all that then?
Well, it's a long story, but how it began is so in 1991, I had a casual talk with a professor, senior professor in the Department of History in my university. And he asked me whether this Cheonggyecheon could be restored to have the old Cheonggyecheons coming back. So it was quite a quick question and sudden question, unexpected question to me. So I said that yes, technically it can be done, because my research work involves that water treatment, and he mainly interested whether the clean water could be flown, when the Cheonggyecheon is restored. So that was it. It was a casual conversation in a commuting bus in my university. So I just forgot. And then a few weeks later, that conversation just reminds me. So I asked my student whether it's data on the water quality of the Cheonggyecheon, the river. So, but about a month later, so I couldn't get any data, any response from my students. So I asked them what happened. They said they couldn't find any water quality data of Cheonggyecheons. So I asked them, how far did you back did you look up the data? And then said, well, 10 years ago. So, well, go back to from the 1960s before this is covered. So they find some data, but the data ended in 1978. That is the point where all the Cheonggyecheon streams is covered. Okay, so it officially became a road. So they didn't do the survey on that water quality. So that was it. And then a few years later, I went to the University of Ottawa in Canada on my sabbatical leave. So the University of Ottawa is in the downtown of Ottawa, and just near the Rideau Canal. There is a man-made canal. And I used to have a lunch along the canal. And I just reminded that the Cheonggyecheon is much better than this man-made canal when it is restored. So I look up some data, how this canal has been built, how it's maintained, what kind of amenities along these rivers. So when I back in 1997, back to Korea, I keep on asking people that, well, I like to restore the Cheonggyecheon, so what do you think about it? And I got responses. The common responses is first response is immediate response is it's great. Okay, we wish to restore the Cheonggyecheon. But right after the questions is what happened to the traffic? Because the number of cars passing through these highways and the Cheonggyecheon road has been more than 180,000 vehicles per day at the time. So they concerned about that the traffic jams when this road is removed. And then there are some other questions: how you will get these clean waters flowing, and what happened to the businesses, small businesses along the Cheonggyecheon streams, and especially street vendors and that sort of questions. So I can answer the water problems, some technology, what kind of technology you're going to use to restore this and then rebuild this kind of river. But I don't know anything about traffic. So it took about a year. I asked these questions and they got the similar responses. The traffic, what gonna do with the traffic? So I asked one of my colleagues that who is the best persons know the Seoul traffic conditions. So I got a name as Dr. Hwang Gi-yeon in Seoul Development Institute. He is responsible for the division of Seoul traffic policies, and so I got the phone number. I just asked him. I just called, and then introduced myself, and I just tell him that I want to restore the Cheonggyecheon. And everybody worry about the traffic jams and what's going to happen to the traffic. And he told me, well, it won't be any problem.
Was that the answer you expected to hear?
No. Because because I don't know anything about the traffic. So I thought that, wow, this traffic jam is gonna be a big problem. But the guy who knows the best Seoul traffic says so. It won't be a problem. So I asked him to come to my department to give a seminar on the Seoul traffic policies and some situations, what's happening. And so about a month later, he came to my my department and then give a seminar to my students. And then I understand why he said that. He answered that way. Quickly, there won't be any problem. Because he had experience before. What happens in the 1992, early 90s, we had one bridge is broken. It's collapsed suddenly. So there are many people lost their lives. There is a main bridge is connecting to the north part and then south part of Seoul. So there was a lot of confusion in the traffic at the first few days. But after 1 week, the traffic wasn't back to the normal, even though the bridge is collapsed. So all the road connecting those two is closed. And that bridge carries about 100,000 vehicles per day. And also he had some experience. There's a Cheonggyecheon, the overpass, the highway, has been half of that is closed for the maintenance for 6 months, something like that. So he had experience monitoring all those situations, how traffic changes in around Seoul. So he said that it won't be any problem. So after I got the explanation from him, and then I keep on asking my colleagues and many different peoples and then the opinion leaders the same questions and then same answer. What kind of your traffic? So I said, no problem. Okay? And then they ask, why? Well, the best guy who knows Seoul traffic says so.
Yeah.
That is how I expand these discussions. Okay. And so in 2002, I thought that well, it's time to have some kind of a symposium on the Cheonggyecheon restoration. Okay. So my university sponsored a small symposium, the 2-day symposium. So I asked, well, of course, that the Dr. Hwang is a traffic expert, and some other field of experts, like the environmental impact assessment and the health problems and the law related problems and some economics and all different aspects we should consider and study when we actually do these restorations. So about 40 experts come to this workshop, and then we talk about the different aspects of restorations. Some technology part, some economic part, some culture and heritage part. So well, at the night, after evening, we have beers, and then we relaxed, and then we talk about what is gonna happen.
So sometimes that's when the real work gets done, is over beers in the evening.
Right. So, well, some guy said that why it gonna be more than 10 years, and some said that why it could be sooner than that. But the general consensus it's gonna be over more than 10 years from that. So that was the 2000s. So maybe now. But so what happens? So we had the first symposium. So we had the booklet of the symposiums, which covers 8 major area of the research area required to do that restorations. So that booklet was circulating through the opinion leaders, and of course in the Seoul city officials as well. So we formed a Cheonggyecheon restoration study group. Okay, at the end of the symposium. So we decided to have another symposium in next year. It's 2001 in April. So we had the second symposiums, and then there are more people joined, and then different area. And what happens after the second symposium? That there was Seoul mayor elections. It was 2002. So that is about just 1 year before we had a second symposiums. So after that symposiums, also this symposium materials has been circulating. So one guy, who was participating in the research groups, he gave lectures, gave classes, and one of his graduate course, and mentioned about this Cheonggyecheon project. So what happens is the Mr. Lee Myung-bak, who was preparing for the mayorship at the time, and one of his campaign manager got this information, so got the materials, and then he suggested to Mr. Lee Myung-bak, okay, to have this Cheonggyecheon restorations his main campaign issue. So that's what it happens actually.
So your idea really took off.
Oh yeah, yeah, because I didn't know Mr. Lee Myung-bak at the time, but he asked me. He's preparing for this mayorships, and he want to have this Cheonggyecheon project his main, the campaign issues, and so okay, why not? So we want to restore this, but we cannot do it. We just do the survey and make research on it, but actually things being done by the politicians, not by us. So it became campaign issues and the mayorship issues. So Mr. Lee Myung-bak was selected the one of the more conservative party, and more the liberal party's candidate. His name is Kim Min-seok, and he opposed the restorations because they want to be a huge traffic jams and all those things.
So it became a big campaign issue.
Yeah, it is. That is the major campaign issues. Okay. So Mr. Lee Myung-bak won the elections by huge margins. Okay. So he got the momentum to do this. So it's been done in 3 years. So 2005 October, just 2005 October 1st, it is opened like this.
What's been the public reaction over the decade since it opened?
Well, our number tells more than 200 million visitors come to here. More than 200 million people visited. So I was quite surprised when this was first opened. Well, I expected there are going to be many people coming, but because my interest is in the ecology of this river, okay, and then the water, and then all these fishes and plants and the birds. And see, I was really surprised the speed of restoration of this ecology. So, well, this is the major tourist spot, okay, in Seoul. So Mr. Lee Myung-bak, after the 4 years of mayorship in Seoul, and then he became president. Just because of this, he proved he can do something.
So this little stream project has had a big impact then.
Oh, yes, major impact of his image. And so we can see that it started very humble, a casual talk with the engineer and a philosopher, the professor in the history department. So we are here now.
And all the concerns you talked about in the seminars studying this, how did it work out for the economics of the businesses and that sort of thing?
Well, first of all, the traffic, that problems turned out to be no problem. Okay, the average, the car speed has not been decreased. Of course, during that construction period, there's a small decrease. But after that, the average traffic in the downtown area or suburban area is not decreasing. It's more or less same. And there are more public transit. Public transit use has been increased significantly. Because when we do this, there's many things has been solved simultaneously. There's one thing is the traffic system. Because we have a lot of the bus transit and also subways. So they improved that these transit systems, especially we have in a center bus designated lanes, so which increase that speed of a bus quite a bit. And also you can switch from buses to buses to the metro systems. So we made this public transit more convenient for the citizens to use. And the another thing which changed significantly with this Cheonggyecheon restoration is that all the city design, especially the street designs and that is, there used to be more car-oriented policies. So there are many underpass and then overpass. You have to cross the street, you have to go underpass, or you have to go to the overpass by stair. But so with this project, we changed that. So we changed all the public transit systems more to the pedestrian-oriented system. So that is the how system changed in the last 10 years. And economics, there used to be a very shanty town, even 15 years ago. If you go further down there, see, and also the economy has been deteriorating because in the last 30 years, the Seoul city, they put the more emphasis and they put more their resources to the south of the Han River. So this old downtown area has been deteriorating, all the businesses. But after these restorations, the real estate costs increased, and then business is booming alongside this. So, and also the cost of constructions wasn't that much, considering the overall revenue of the Seoul city.
Visit us on the internet at www.pedestrians.org.